For over a century, Ford has been a pillar of American industry. But now, the company has made a surprising decision that could have major economic repercussions. While some view it as a betrayal, others argue it's Ford's only path to survival. So what's really going on? This isn't just another corporate move. It's a direct challenge to everything Trump represents. Ford's latest announcement reshapes the landscape of American manufacturing, the electric vehicle sector, and the future of U.S. jobs. And the consequences? They're just beginning to unfold. How will this affect American workers and the EV industry? Could it ignite a larger conflict? Stay tuned. This is a story you won't want to miss. Initially, it seemed like just another routine corporate update, another press release among many. But as details emerged, the magnitude of the announcement became undeniable. Ford had made it clear it was no longer following Trump's economic playbook. The automaker had confirmed that a large portion of its electric vehicle production would be relocated overseas. For a company so deeply rooted in American automotive history, this was nothing short of a bold statement. Reactions were swift. News outlets broke the story within minutes, analyzing its implications. Social media erupted, with some praising Ford's decisive move, while others condemned it as a betrayal. Workers, industry leaders, and politicians all weighed in, trying to grasp the full impact on American manufacturing. But this wasn't a decision made lightly. For months, Ford had been navigating an increasingly difficult economic climate, forced to choose between financial survival and its long-standing commitment to U.S. production. When the moment arrived, the company made a move no one had anticipated. Yet, this was just the beginning. Ford wasn't merely protecting its bottom line. It had just taken a decisive step in a battle that would shake the entire auto industry. But what pushed the company to this point? That's where the story takes an even more dramatic turn. At the core of the issue was the rising cost of production. Trump's protectionist policies, aimed at keeping jobs in the U.S., had unintended consequences for manufacturers. Tariffs on essential materials like steel, aluminum, and lithium, critical for EV batteries, sent costs skyrocketing. What was meant to boost American industry had, for companies like Ford, become a financial strain. Behind closed doors, Ford executives had been weighing their options. They realized that continuing to manufacture EVs in the U.S. under these conditions would make them less competitive globally. Meanwhile, international automakers, unburdened by these restrictions, were producing vehicles at significantly lower costs. If Ford wanted to stay in the race, it had to act. Another major factor was supply chain instability. Ongoing disruptions in raw material imports had caused production delays. And in an industry with razor-thin margins, every extra cost or delay could mean the difference between leading the market and falling behind. Ford had seen the warning signs. It had attempted to adapt by investing in domestic facilities and negotiating with policymakers. But as challenges mounted, the company faced a critical decision: continue down an unsustainable path or take the necessary steps to maintain its industry dominance. This wasn't just about Ford. It was about the future of electric vehicles in America. The company saw an opportunity to pivot toward international expansion, leveraging global partnerships to strengthen its position in the evolving auto market. And so, Ford made its move. The plan was set into motion. But once the decision went public, it was only a matter of time before Trump responded, and he didn't hold back. Donald Trump wasted no time in launching an all-out attack on Ford. Caught off guard by the announcement, he reacted swiftly, delivering a forceful and, as expected, explosive response. At a rally soon after the news broke, he stepped onto the stage with unmistakable intensity. The crowd erupted in cheers even before he spoke, sensing the brewing confrontation. And when he finally addressed them, his stance was crystal clear. Ford has turned its back on the American worker, he thundered. They're shipping your jobs overseas while you're left to pick up the pieces. We built Ford. The American worker built Ford. And this is how they repay us. The audience erupted in chants of outrage. The frustration was palpable, and Trump knew exactly how to harness it. He vowed swift action, promising that any company abandoning American jobs would face serious consequences. Tariffs? Penalties? The loss of government contracts? He made it clear everything was on the table. But Ford had expected this reaction. They knew that making such a bold move would put them squarely in Trump's crosshairs. Yet, they proceeded anyway, because at its core, this wasn't just about politics. The backlash was immediate, but it wasn't just from Trump supporters. Media outlets across the political spectrum weighed in. Some defended Ford's decision as a necessary adjustment to a shifting global economy. Others condemned it as a betrayal of the American workers who had supported the company for over a century. The controversy quickly spread beyond the automotive sector. Political analysts offered their takes. Economists predicted the impact, and lawmakers from both parties found themselves forced to respond. Yet, through it all, Ford stood firm. Because this wasn't about making a statement. It was a calculated move. and they were about to make that clear to the entire world. Rather than backtracking, Ford went on the offensive. In a carefully crafted press release, the company directly addressed the growing controversy. There were no apologies, no attempts to downplay their decision. Instead, they presented it as an essential step toward innovation and long-term survival. Ford has always been committed to leading the future of mobility, the statement declared. As the industry evolves, we must make strategic decisions to remain competitive on a global scale. Our dedication to American jobs remains unwavering, but we must also prioritize staying at the forefront of innovation. Ford wasn't just shifting production overseas to cut costs. They were making a bold play to dominate the electric vehicle industry. Expanding globally gave them access to crucial raw materials, reduced production expenses, and the ability to invest heavily in next-generation battery technology. Rather than retreat, Ford was making it clear this wasn't about abandoning America. It was about ensuring they remained a powerhouse in the future of automotive technology. And they weren't backing down. Ford's official statement didn't just defend its decision. It reinforced the company's ongoing commitment to the U.S. economy. The automaker emphasized its plans to expand research and development facilities and boost domestic production of high-tech vehicle components. The response was calculated, addressing concerns while standing firm on its course. But the controversy was far from over. If anything, it was just getting started. This wasn't merely a business decision. It was a direct challenge to Donald Trump's economic policies. And the showdown between the White House and one of America's most iconic car makers was only going to intensify. What came next? No one could have predicted. Is Ford abandoning the American workforce? Or is this the only way for the company to survive? That question has divided the nation. By announcing plans to shift a significant portion of its electric vehicle production overseas, Ford wasn't just making a business move. It was challenging the foundations of the U.S. automotive industry. Yet, Ford faces an undeniable economic reality. The cost of manufacturing electric vehicles in America is surging, largely due to tariffs on critical raw materials like lithium, cobalt, and nickel, resources that are predominantly controlled by foreign markets. With supply chain instability and unpredictable trade policies, Ford has been forced to make difficult choices to remain competitive. But this isn't just about Ford. It's a symptom of a much larger shift in the global economy. Today's automakers aren't simply competing with each other. They're contending with entire nations and international trade networks. Ford's leadership sees global expansion as the key to securing its future. Trump, however, sees it differently. To him, this is nothing short of a betrayal. Rallying his supporters, he denounced Ford for prioritizing profits over patriotism. His base responded with calls for boycotts and demands for policies that would force American companies to keep jobs on home soil. But what if Ford isn't turning its back on America at all? What if this move is part of an even bigger battle, one that has nothing to do with politics? Ford isn't just going head-to-head with Trump. It's taking on Tesla, and that changes everything. Tesla has dominated the electric vehicle market, setting the standard for battery efficiency, software integration, and direct-to-consumer sales. Ford, despite its century-long legacy, has struggled to keep pace. It has poured billions into EV development. But in an industry where Tesla has mastered vertical integration and rapid production scaling, Ford is still playing catch-up. As Tesla continues expanding globally, setting up production hubs beyond U.S. borders, Ford sees no alternative but to follow suit. This isn't just about cost-cutting. It's about survival in a rapidly evolving market. By shifting production overseas, Ford is securing critical supply chains, reducing manufacturing expenses, and positioning itself for long-term success in an industry where speed and innovation dictate who stays ahead. Tesla has also redefined what consumers expect from their vehicles. Today's drivers demand cutting-edge technology, over-the-air software updates, and a robust charging network. Ford's traditional dealership model and reliance on internal combustion engines are becoming obsolete. Without a bold move now, Ford risks falling even further behind. But bold moves come with consequences. While Ford's strategy might make it more competitive globally, it has ignited a firestorm of controversy at home. The battle has now reached Washington, turning this corporate decision into a heated political showdown. Ford's announcement has sent shockwaves through Washington, triggering a fierce debate about the future of American manufacturing. The decision has become a flashpoint in the ongoing war over labor rights, economic nationalism, and global competition. Republican lawmakers, particularly those aligned with Trump, have condemned Ford's move as a betrayal of American workers. Proposals for retaliatory measures are already on the table. Tariffs on automakers that shift jobs overseas, tax penalties for corporations that prioritize foreign production, and restrictions on federal contracts for companies that don't keep their operations within U.S. borders. The rhetoric is escalating, with political leaders framing Ford's move as a direct attack on the American workforce. On the other side, some Democrats and economic analysts argue that Ford's decision reflects an unavoidable industry shift. Rather than punishing the company, they advocate for policies that strengthen America's position in the EV revolution. Expanding tax incentives for domestic EV production, investing in battery manufacturing, and modernizing the electric grid are all being proposed as ways to ensure that the U.S. remains a leader in this rapidly evolving sector. This battle isn't just political, it's personal. Ford's workers and their families are anxiously watching, uncertain about their future. Auto unions are mobilizing, demanding guarantees that American jobs won't be sacrificed in pursuit of cost-cutting. Investors are assessing whether Ford's gamble will secure long-term growth or whether public and political backlash will damage the company's standing. The stakes are higher than ever, and as this fight continues, one question looms large. Will Ford's global strategy secure its future, or will the political and economic backlash prove too much to overcome? Ford isn't backing down. They have a well-defined strategy that goes beyond simply relocating production. The company is making strategic decisions that could reshape its future, influencing both its position in the EV market and its role in the global economy. That's where their billion-dollar investment comes in. While Trump and Congress clash over Ford's decision, the automaker has been quietly executing a transformative plan. Ford isn't just moving production, it's doubling down on the future. The company has announced a substantial investment in battery technology and EV infrastructure, committing billions to research and development. Their goal isn't just to keep pace with Tesla, but to surpass them by leveraging traditional automakers' strengths, scale, experience, and industrial capabilities. Ford is constructing new battery facilities, forming alliances with global suppliers, and securing key resources to gain greater control over the EV supply chain. They're betting that by investing in cutting-edge technology now, they can establish themselves as the dominant force in the EV market when the transition is complete. However, this strategy carries significant risks. Expanding overseas means navigating complex political landscapes, adapting to shifting regulations, and potentially facing retaliation from an administration that views these moves as unpatriotic. There's also the uncertainty of how consumers will respond. Will they continue to support Ford, or will the backlash cause lasting damage to the brand's reputation? Just as Ford appeared to have a solid plan, Trump had one more move up his sleeve, one that could change everything. The battle was far from over. For President Trump, this wasn't just about a single company relocating production. It was a direct challenge to his economic agenda. If Ford succeeded, what would stop other corporations from following suit? His message had to be clear. Any company that defied his America First policies would face consequences. Behind closed doors, Trump and his advisors devised a series of aggressive countermeasures. His first move was to push for immediate tariff revisions, proposing penalties on automakers that relied on foreign production. He framed it as a necessary step to protect American workers. Additionally, he threatened to revoke government contracts, warning that any company outsourcing jobs would lose access to federal funding and tax incentives. The rhetoric quickly escalated. At a rally, Trump declared, Ford was built by American hands. If they want to take that legacy overseas, they will pay the price. His supporters, many from manufacturing towns hit hard by economic shifts, saw Ford's decision as yet another corporate betrayal. The stakes had never been higher, but Ford was ready. Their leadership stood firm, releasing a statement reaffirming their dedication to innovation, sustainability, and long-term competitiveness. They emphasized their ongoing investments in U.S. electric vehicle infrastructure and clarified that their decision was driven by industry survival, not politics. Ford executives understood the rapid evolution of the auto industry and knew that competing with Tesla and emerging European manufacturers required making tough choices. As Trump's threats turned into concrete actions, the impact rippled across industries. Automakers, tech giants, and global investors paid close attention. Some companies seized the opportunity to align with Trump, highlighting their commitment to domestic production. Others, however, grew concerned that his unpredictable policies could introduce long-term instability. Then, something unexpected happened. Influential business leaders, lobbyists, and industry insiders began pushing back against Trump's aggressive stance. They cautioned that punishing Ford could trigger unintended consequences, not just for the auto industry, but for the entire economy. The conflict had escalated beyond a single company's decision. It had become a debate over how the U.S. should engage with a globalized economy. Trump's crackdown had an unforeseen effect. It backfired. Rather than forcing Ford into compliance, his aggressive tactics sent shockwaves through the economy. Businesses tied to Ford's supply chain faced uncertainty, while investors, wary of government intervention in corporate decision-making, reassessed their strategies. The stock market, already sensitive to trade disputes, reacted with volatility. It wasn't just Ford that felt the pressure. Other automakers, some of which had previously praised Trump's tax policies, began reevaluating their own production strategies. If tariffs and government contract cancellations became a routine response to corporate decisions, it could set a dangerous precedent. Behind closed doors, business leaders debated their next steps. Some quietly lobbied against Trump's approach, concerned that his policies were becoming more about political retaliation than sound economic planning. One of the biggest surprises came from American consumers. While some backed Trump's call for a Ford boycott, others saw the situation differently. Supporters of clean energy and global competitiveness rallied behind Ford, believing the company was making a forward-thinking move. Social media became a battleground, with hashtags trending both for and against the automaker. Through it all, Ford remained resolute, doubling down on its message and staying committed to its vision for the future. Ford responded with a robust public relations campaign, reaffirming its American heritage and emphasizing its continued multi-billion-dollar investments in domestic jobs and facilities. Executives took to the media, stressing that their decision was not about abandoning American manufacturing, but about adapting to a rapidly evolving global economy. They framed their move as a necessary step to remain competitive rather than a rejection of U.S. industry. Meanwhile, Trump found himself in a tough spot. His strategy of pressuring corporations into submission had worked before, but Ford was proving to be a formidable adversary. If he continued his aggressive stance, he risked alienating business leaders and economic allies. If he backed down, it would be seen as a defeat. The political stakes were immense. As tensions escalated, it became clear that this battle extended beyond Ford and Trump. It was about the broader power struggle between government and industry. Who truly dictated the direction of the American economy? Were politicians setting the course through policy, or were corporations shaping the future based on market forces? The outcome of this confrontation would have long-term consequences, not just for Ford, but for the entire landscape of American manufacturing. And as the dust settled, one thing was certain: the fight was far from over. This was only the beginning. The U.S. auto industry was undergoing a seismic shift. The era of traditional manufacturing was fading, and Ford's decision to expand EV production abroad was more than a corporate move. It marked a turning point for the entire sector. The same pressures influencing Ford were also reshaping General Motors, Stellantis, and even Tesla. If an American automotive giant like Ford had to adapt, how long before its competitors followed? The shift to electric vehicles was no longer optional. Governments worldwide were imposing stricter emissions regulations, consumers were demanding cleaner alternatives, and the race for battery innovation was intensifying. Ford's overseas investment was just one piece of a much larger transformation. General Motors had already announced plans to fully transition to EVs. Stellantis, the parent company of Chrysler, Jeep, and Dodge, was pouring billions into battery production. Even Tesla, despite its American roots, relied heavily on foreign supply chains for critical materials. For traditional automakers, this transition wasn't just an evolution, it was a fight for survival. EV production required a completely different approach compared to building internal combustion engine cars. Factories, supply chains, and workforce demands were changing dramatically, forcing companies to rethink everything from production lines to material sourcing. This shift also brought new challenges. As automation and AI-driven manufacturing became more prevalent, traditional factory jobs were inevitably declining. The image of thousands of workers assembling cars by hand was quickly becoming a relic of the past. The automotive industry wasn't just modernizing, it was fundamentally transforming, with long-term consequences for workers, companies, and the economy as a whole. Ford's clash with Trump underscores the broader struggle between innovation and tradition. While Trump's push for domestic manufacturing aligns with his vision of economic nationalism, the question remains, can the U.S. remain competitive while resisting globalization? Ford's leadership made a strategic decision to ensure the company's long-term viability, despite the immediate political controversy. If other automakers fail to adapt, they risk losing ground in the global race for technological advancement. But this fight extends beyond the automotive industry. For decades, car manufacturing has been a symbol of American resilience, strength, and ingenuity. If Ford's decision signals the future, what does that mean for American industry as a whole? The next few years will determine whether the U.S. retains its leadership in automotive innovation or falls behind in the worldwide transition towards sustainability and automation. And this battle isn't confined to cars. The economic forces at play are much bigger than one company's strategy. What if this isn't just about Ford, but about the future of the American economy? The effects of this conflict will ripple through supply chains, job markets, and political landscapes, exposing deeper economic vulnerabilities that could reshape multiple industries. One of the biggest pressures driving automakers to expand overseas is the rising cost of raw materials. Tariffs on steel, aluminum, and lithium have made domestic production more expensive than ever. These materials aren't just essential for vehicles. They're critical to industries like consumer electronics and defense. If production costs keep climbing, more companies may follow Ford's lead, moving operations abroad to remain competitive. Another major concern is job displacement. Manufacturing has long been the backbone of many American communities, but as companies prioritize efficiency and cost reduction, traditional factory jobs are vanishing. While new opportunities will arise in automation and software engineering, the transition will be challenging. Retraining programs offer some hope, but whether they can keep pace with the industry's rapid evolution is uncertain. At the core of this debate lies a fundamental question: who truly benefits? Is it Ford, securing its global position? Trump, strengthening his message of economic nationalism? Or is it the global market itself, which forces companies to choose between economic survival and patriotic loyalty? There's no easy answer, but what do you think?